Marcus Hill was 37 years old, a black single father with tired eyes and a quiet kind of strength that came from doing the same hard things every day without applause. He lived in a small rented house on the edge of Cedar Grove, a calm, ordinary town where mornings smelled like toast and bus exhaust, and evenings were filled with distant TV sounds and barking dogs. Marcus worked as a facilities maintenance supervisor for a mid-sized office complex downtown. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills and allowed him to be home by 6 most evenings. His world revolved around his 8-year-old daughter Ava. Every morning, Marcus woke before sunrise, packed Ava's lunch with extra apple slices because she loved them, checked her homework folder twice, and walked her to the bus stop no matter how tired he felt. He listened more than he spoke, especially to Ava's endless stories about school, her drawings, and the way she noticed little things most adults missed. Since Ava's mother passed away 5 years earlier after a sudden illness, Marcus had learned to do everything himself. Braiding hair was still a challenge, but he tried. Cooking wasn't fancy, but it was warm and consistent. Their home wasn't big, but it was clean and filled with small routines that made life feel steady. Every Friday night was homemade pizza night. Every Sunday morning meant pancakes and soft music playing from an old radio. Marcus didn't complain about his life. He accepted it with a calm sense of responsibility, even though loneliness sometimes crept in when the house went quiet after Ava fell asleep. At work, Marcus was known as dependable. He fixed broken lights, checked heating systems, and made sure offices stayed functional. He rarely drew attention to himself. That changed slightly when a new CEO took over the company that owned the complex. Her name was Alina Wright. She was 42, sharp, composed, and thoughtful in a way that didn't feel distant. Unlike most executives Marcus had encountered from afar, Alina noticed people. She greeted security guards by name, thanked janitors, and once stopped Marcus in the hallway to ask how long a repair would take, not with impatience but curiosity. That brief conversation turned into more over time. Casual greetings became short chats. Short chats became mutual respect. Marcus never imagined someone like Alina would see him as anything more than a background worker, but she did, quietly and sincerely. Despite the steady rhythm of his life, Marcus carried a constant weight, the fear that he was just barely holding things together. Money was always tight. Ava was growing fast and her needs were growing with her. School supplies, shoes, unexpected fees, everything added up. Marcus sometimes lay awake at night calculating expenses in his head, wondering what would happen if he got sick or if the car finally gave up. He didn't talk about these worries with anyone. He didn't want Ava to feel them, and he didn't want pity from coworkers. Emotionally, Marcus struggled with the idea of moving forward. Loving again felt complicated. He wasn't closed off, but he was cautious. The memory of loss had taught him how fragile happiness could be. When Alina began spending more time talking with him, asking about Ava, listening with genuine interest, Marcus felt a mix of warmth and confusion. Alina lived in a world so different from his. She attended meetings, made big decisions, and carried herself with confidence. Marcus fixed doors and checked pipes. He couldn't imagine where he would fit into her life. One afternoon, after a long day of repairs, Marcus and Alina found themselves alone in the break area. They talked about work stress, about expectations, about how leadership often looked strong on the outside but felt uncertain on the inside. Alina surprised him by admitting she felt isolated despite her position. She said people often saw her title before they saw her. Marcus nodded, understanding that feeling in his own way. Then with a small smile that felt half playful and half serious, Alina said, "Sometimes I think life would be simpler if I just said, 'Marry me and let fate sort it out.'" Marcus laughed, assuming it was a joke. He replied lightly, "Careful, I might say yes." They both laughed and the moment passed, but something subtle shifted. Marcus went home that night unsettled. The joke replayed in his mind. It wasn't about marriage, it was about being seen even briefly as someone worth choosing. That idea scared him. He worried that allowing himself to imagine more would only lead to disappointment. He reminded himself of reality, different worlds, different responsibilities. He told himself not to read into it. Still, the thought lingered. In the weeks that followed, Marcus focused harder on his responsibilities. He volunteered for extra shifts, took on more repairs, and tried to build a small emergency savings fund. He encouraged Ava's interests, attended every school event he could, and worked on being both parents at once. Emotionally, he tried to keep a safe distance from Alina. He remained polite and friendly but avoided deeper conversations. It wasn't resentment, it was self-protection. Alina noticed the change. She sensed the careful boundaries Marcus was placing and respected them, but she also felt a quiet disappointment. She admired his dedication, his honesty, and the way he spoke about his daughter with pride rather than complaint. Alina herself was dealing with pressure from the board, expectations from her family, and a life that looked successful on paper but felt incomplete. She had achieved many goals, but hadn't built the kind of personal connection she wanted. Marcus, meanwhile, wrestled with an internal debate. Part of him wanted to open up, to allow friendship or something more. Another part insisted that stability mattered more than possibility. He spoke to no one about it. Instead, he focused on improving his life in small, practical ways. He took a free online course on building management. He learned how to budget more efficiently. He tried to be proactive rather than reactive. One evening, Ava asked him why he always looked serious lately. Marcus smiled and said he was just thinking about grown-up things. Ava replied, "You don't have to do everything alone, you know." The simplicity of her words stayed with him. Marcus realized that his effort wasn't just about surviving, it was about allowing himself to believe that support could exist without weakness. The turning point came unexpectedly. The office complex experienced a major power issue during a stormy afternoon. Marcus stayed late to manage repairs and ensure safety. Eleanor stayed too, checking on staff and making sure everyone could leave safely. As the building slowly returned to normal, they ended up sitting in the lobby, exhausted but relieved. Eleanor thanked Marcus sincerely for his dedication. She spoke openly about her life, her fear of being valued only for her position, and her desire for something real. Marcus listened, then surprised himself by sharing his own fears of failing Ava, of never feeling secure, of believing he wasn't enough for a life beyond survival. There was no drama, just honesty. Eleanor then revealed something unexpected. Months earlier, after their joking conversation, she had quietly made arrangements for a symbolic private wedding registration, something she saw as an act of hope rather than certainty. She explained that she believed commitment started with intention, and she wanted to choose partnership consciously, not impulsively. She hadn't expected Marcus to know or agree yet. She just wanted him to understand that her words had carried meaning. Marcus was stunned, not angry. He felt overwhelmed by the trust implicit in her choice. Instead of fear, he felt respect. He realized that love didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came as quiet confidence in another person's worth. Marcus didn't answer immediately. He took time to think, to talk with Ava, and to reflect on what kind of future he wanted. Ava listened carefully when he explained that sometimes adults are scared to accept good things. She asked if Eleanor was kind. Marcus said yes. Ava smiled and said, "Then maybe that's enough to start." When Marcus finally spoke to Eleanor again, he didn't promise perfection. He promised effort, honesty, and presence. Eleanor accepted that with relief and gratitude. They chose to move forward slowly, openly, and with respect for each other's lives. The symbolic ceremony became meaningful not because it was secret but because it represented choice. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Marcus still worked hard, Eleanor still faced pressure, but they supported each other. Ava gained a caring adult who respected her space, their home filled with new routines, not replacements but additions. The story of Marcus and Eleanor is not about wealth or titles. It is about recognizing value in unexpected places and understanding that love is not about rescue or status. It is about choosing connection over fear and believing that stability and hope can exist together. The moral is simple. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept kindness when it's offered, even if you're not sure you deserve it yet. Because growth often begins the moment we stop standing alone and allow someone to stand beside us.